Thank you so much. And Rahul, thank you. Wait, I'm not on? Am I on? I'm on. Just kidding. I've done this before. My name is Emily Allen. I am the Executive Director of Tech Nebraska. Thank you to Rahul and Daragh for being here for our Q1 Tech Talk. This is especially exciting for Tech Nebraska because it is the first time that we are live streaming a Tech Talk. One thing that is incredibly important to our board, many of whom are here today, and myself, is access. So we'll continue to live stream our Tech Talks. We'll continue to provide Tech Talks at no cost. Even more exciting that we're announcing today, Tech Nebraska individual memberships, Tech Nebraska student memberships are now free. We want you to be a part of our community. We want you to plug in with our leaders, our community, our conversation. So sorry to steal the thunder from your conversation, both of you, but I'm going to now hand it over to two leaders who are transforming legacy industries to learn about UP. Daragh, Rahul, thank you.
All right. Thank you. So Rahul, I think let's start with the largest attendance ever at a tech talk. I mean, you're the star power here, man. There's 150 people online and the room is full.
Yeah,
That's a rock star vibe.
I'd say
Yeah.
it was all Daragh.
Yeah, no, I don't
Look
think
at
so.
him. Look at him.
I
He's a
don't think
tall
so.
Irish guy, and who wants to
Well,
come see this dude, old crusty here? It's all about Daragh over there.
there's a couple of things. Like I want you to know, like Rahul has dressed down today and I dressed up, right? So it's the difference in railroad margins versus trucking margins, right? I got a logo up. He's dressed very nicely. But anyway, let's get started. I think first of all, it's sort of good coincidence, bad timing. I don't know which it was, but Rahul and I came to Omaha at about the same time. We both joined our respective companies in 2020. We went through this Omaha Chamber of Commerce sort of welcome experience for executives coming into the area, which was supposed to be done in person, but it largely ended up being done over Zoom because of COVID or the pandemic. But towards the end, we got to meet and we got to have lunch and we got to have dinner, and we've become good friends, I think, ever since. So what you're going to have today, I hope, is just a good conversation between two friends who happen to be CIOs in the trenches. We have a lot of very similar views and philosophies on tech, but we have a lot of different philosophies on tech as well. So an argument might break out. Don't worry, we'll resolve it very quickly. So we're going to have a conversation. It'll be like most conversations between Rahul and I. I'll do most of the listening. He'll do most of the talking. But let's get started. So let's talk.
You all are in for some fun.
We are. It is. I mean, there's a height difference as well, but we won't talk about that. But anyway, let's just start with big news in the last couple of months. Union Pacific are acquiring Norfolk Southern. Just, as much as you can, and I know you have regulations, you've got it here, to just give us some of the color around that.
Absolutely, Bob. First, I want to welcome everybody to Union Pacific, a historic company founded by President Lincoln. And I had an honor of meeting Mayor Don from Ralston in the back, who's an ex-UP tech employee and used to manage the Teradata team. And I was happy to tell him that it's still alive there, Mayor. So we've kept it alive. And then I see my good buddy Mike Newcomb here, that was great mentor to me in my first couple of years here at Union Pacific. Remember, America did not build itself.
So he's to blame.
America didn't build itself. America needed people like Mayor Don, like Mike, and so many here that are working relentlessly in powering the idea of how do we move the country forward. And it's with that idea of that baton that's gotten passed to this current generation from folks that I mentioned and so many others that have come before us to say, how do we move the country forward? This is the vision that President Lincoln had, to have a true transcontinental railroad that connects basically the country in unbelievable ways, to create that advantage of a supply chain system that's envy of the world. But yet we are the only modern nation that does not have a transcontinental railroad. Canada has two. So to me, that it goes back to just creating a value chain of why we're doing it. It is to create the value chain and move the goods in unbelievable ways, connect the 100 ports or so create connectivity with all the Canadian, export areas, create connectivity with all the Mexican gateways. That's the region. The other big reason for it is really, if you think about the artificial line, Mississippi River is the artificial line of the commerce. So 200 miles to the east of it, 500 miles to the west of it, we call it the watershed area, the Mississippi watershed area. It's grossly underserved by the railroads in general. So why is that? Because of how the railroad system was set up, and we think that 700-mile is such a hotbed of industry. Like, look, we all live in that 700-mile area, and it's grossly underserved, and we feel like we need to power that. So this idea of connecting with Norfolk Southern in a potential merger that we have announced that we will actually do a filing with the government a second time by the end of April is an attempt to actually rectify what President Lincoln had visioned for this country, create this unbelievable supply chain activity that's going to not just power how goods move, but also power uh, the exports, the industry, the revitalization of America, the middle America that is underserved is a idea that we're beginning to tackle. So a massive undertaking, a huge regulatory lift that we're going to take, but we think it's a win-win-win situation for everybody involved.
That's great. I honestly did not know that he was founded by Lincoln. That's really by President Lincoln. That's really interesting.
1862.
1862. Wow. We're celebrating. Werner celebrating its 70-year anniversary this year. So, not quite as old as you guys, but it is like it does show that transportation has been vital to this company and all its this country in all its forms for centuries. So let's get into some questions and some conversation around, I think both you and I, it's fair to say, were brought in to sort of transform technology in legacy industries, as Emily said. So just talk a little bit about what you walked into, what your plan was, and kind of where you're at today. Like, what's the biggest difference from 5 years ago? But what was it like 5 years ago?
It was fun. It continues to be fun, and we'll make sure that we leave the company in a place where it is very competitive, to deal with. I came out of retail, 24 years in retail. Retail's two things: retail's detail, and retail is speed. Think about how your personal life has changed, how you shop, how you order a taxi, how you order anything these days, right? Retail had to change at the speed of the customer. So the adjoining industries like supply chain, we're having to evolve as well. Because if you don't evolve, here's an interesting stat, Dara, right? Since year 2000, it just doesn't seem too far, right? All of you existed in year 2000, right? Anybody here not existed in year 2000? You? Oh my God.
There always has to be one.
I have no idea what to tell you, buddy. But since year 2000, 52% of Fortune 500 companies have perished, do not exist. That's a staggering number. Fortune 500 is by itself, Dara, a company that's set up, has a niche product, has value proposition, and they're gone, right? Companies that forget to reinvent themselves perish. So it's with that idea that the two of us got the jobs we got from industries that we were not very familiar with, to kind of continue that transformation journey, bring in a new age thinking, that customer centricity in mind, that digital transformation at scale, right? Transformations have happened in every era, transformations have happened in every decade, but doing it in today's age, it's cool to call it digital transformation, by the way, but transformations have really happened in every decade. But do it at scale to keep that relevancy and continue to create value and leave a good journey. So it's been a great 5 years, and I'm sure we'll get into some of the details of the specifics around that. But what we have at play here is foundationally a company that is primed for growth, primed for success, because the foundation had to be gotten to a place where we kind of started thinking like a platform company. If you look at today's most successful companies, the most successful companies are platform companies. You think about Facebook, they changed their name to Meta because it's a platform of products. If you look at Amazon, it's not really retail, it's a platform of companies. You think about Google, they changed their names to Alphabet. It's a platform of companies. Platform mindset wins. And taking a cue from that, our journey here last 5 years is really how do we're not going to be the next Meta or something, but why not be the Meta or Alphabet of supply chain? Why don't we organize ourselves with the same principles of the platform mindset and get that foundational things? Once you get the foundation right, which we have a very solid foundation on, you can build really tall buildings on top of it. With the data and with the experimentation in AI and scaled AI, etc. So which we'll get into the details of that. I feel very good about where we are right now.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we say this all the time now. Every company is a tech company. I mean, you have to be. Every company has some element of technology that runs it, that is the foundational, that are the systems, the platforms that run it. So if you look at 5 years ago, again, what you walked in, obviously UP, very successful company, obviously had good foundations in technology, just like Werner did, but they were old foundations. So what do you think the biggest difference between 5 years ago and today is? Like what transformation? What was the first thing you had to hit? What was the hardest work you had to do?
Yeah, first 6 to 12 months were, when you walk into a new job, you got basically to assess three things. Do you have a what problem, a how problem, or a who problem? And you have to gauge that out of the experience that you have. And I came to this conclusion very, very quickly that we did not have a who problem. Brilliant engineers, hardworking Midwest values, working hard, and could go climb any hill out there that we set out to be conquered. But we had a somewhat of a what problem and a mega how we show up to the business, right? It was a little bit of the tech for tech mindset versus what we have transformed into really a what I call two in a box, where us and the business are together, forming opinions, forming what we're going to work on, how we're going to address it. Gone are the days of waterfall at Union Pacific. We now think in 90-day cycles, right? We think about what's going to happen over the next 90 days. How do we connect the North Star of a 3 to 5 year journey, but chunk it out in more 90-day cycles? We had a mainframe system that was more than 50 years old that was running the railroad. That's gone, right? That's part of the platform thinking that I was talking about. Our version of air traffic control dispatch was an old system. That's gone. It's a very modern system. Mike Newcomb sitting here, he laid the foundation for an extreme IoT network for the railroad, and I give you a lot of credit for that. And that's playing into our journey of now beginning to connect all that. With that, we had to also change out the philosophy around customer centricity, right? A lot of times companies fall in love with themselves and it's more about operations and how you have operational efficiencies, etc. That's more inward looking. But we really have taken a massive look at the customer centricity. Like, what do our customers, Dara, like your customers, what would they three things they would generally want? Where's my stuff? If you have a problem with it, can I know, like just with Amazon today, right, in your own personal lives, can you tell me what's going to happen to it? And can you be easy to do business with and be exceptional in exception management, right? Those are basic things that a customer would want. Ease of business, let me know where my stuff is, and be easy to do if there's an exception. And we've reinvented ourselves. Part of that platform was extending this mindset really to the customers in form of now 65 publicly available APIs in which they don't have to call Union Pacific. They talk machine to machine with us. we love it because that's less work on us. It's more fluid communication. It's real-time conversation, and we're beginning to extend that. And then the third component of it, a digital transformation is only as strong as its weakest link. And for us, we didn't want the back office systems to be left behind. So we coalesced everything around SAP. One of the first things we did was went to S/4HANA Rise, hosted on cloud, and believe it or not, this is why I say we didn't have a who problem. This team figured out how to do S/4HANA Rise in a short 8.5 months. It is a record of sorts. And then we've coalesced and put in other SAP products because again, a digital transformation, we didn't want like excellent customer service, excellent operational platforms, but then a back office that can't handle it. It is a scaled transformation, building those platforms in a solid fashion and having a connected view of what the future looks like. So that's really the gist of last 5 years. That now foundationally, Dara, we're at a place where we feel like we're primed for the era of scaled AI.
You can build, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's interesting. We're probably both on very similar timelines. Like it took us longer than I would have wanted, but now I do feel like as we come into hopefully a return in the freight market, and we're all fingers crossed for that. Many of you won't know what we mean, but Rahul and I certainly do. But we feel like we're primed. Like we now have a modern platform. I think you do too. And we feel like as the market returns to us and as the freight market gets bigger, capacity is exiting the market and demand is growing, we're primed to take advantage of that. Maybe not advantage is not the right word, but we're primed to be right there. Now, I also feel like for me, probably the single biggest challenge, and this is true of any company, and I'm sure you experience it too, is just change management, right? And I don't mean change management as in getting code to production. I mean change management as in people change management. So just talk a little bit about that. I mean, because it's really hard to walk into an organization where people, fantastic people, experts in their areas, great operators, but they've been using the same systems and doing things the same way for decades in some cases. So a big part of what I had to help manage was the change. And I know you had to go through that too. So just talk a little bit about how you sort of roped people into change. How did you manage it? How did you get people to a point where they accepted all of the new technology that you were putting in front of them?
Yeah, listen, as good leaders, and I learned this from phenomenal people, phenomenal mentors in my life. One thing that they always did well was explain the why and keep repeating that why we need to change, why we need to change the how, why we need to change the process, right? And you and I joined in the middle of COVID, so I was trying to figure it out. I literally I had a thought going through my mind that nobody's going to know me for first 2-3 years, right? Because majority of people were not coming to work, and so I started actually writing a blog of how my week went, and I started getting so much unsolicited feedback that I'm like, whoa, this is I didn't anticipate that there would be such a positive response to those blogs written as simple real talk. And the more I wrote, the more people were asking about, now what is it that you want to implement over the next 3 to 5 years? And it became very apparent to me that I had to be relentless in explaining the why. And then a common mistake that Dara and I would love to hear your journey at Werner as well, is you got to have a true North Star. You got to have an idea of where do you want the company and the organization to be in that 3 to 5 year horizon. But more important is, how do you chunk it up? Especially in a legacy company like ours that's been in existence and gone through so much change over not just decades, but really centuries, right? So I can't just show up and say, this all is wrong, right? We had to evolve from waterfall to agile. We had to evolve from disparate organizational structure to a product structure. We had to evolve from being output based to outcome focused, right? So to me, that required a relentless focus on always explaining the why. And that's why I went to a 90-day cycle. At Union Pacific, we do not do multi-year projects. I've got a few of my team members here. I see them nodding. It doesn't mean that we don't do multi-year projects. We just mean that they have to seek approval every single year for that second year to be executed, because we evaluate and reevaluate. Hey, this is not a classic waterfall project. This is actually meeting the execution. So see, all those things are change management, and you have to be relentless about it with training. You have to be relentless about it explaining. We've brought in outside speakers for the first few years that were explaining these concepts. And then once you get the business on your side, right? Once you get the business on your side, it's been game over.
Yeah.
Because then they see the value, and I would love to hear your side of the story.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you. The first thing is getting the business on your side, and I think I walk into a job and I go, okay, like let's find things that are low hanging fruit that really piss the business off, and how do we fix those things very, very quickly? And we identified a couple of those, and that sort of builds some credibility. I think that's important. The second thing, and I learned this lesson before I got to Werner, but I also made the mistake I'm about to describe to you. So, um, I, at a previous company, I sat in a room one day with 300 people in it, and the new chief marketing officer got up on stage to announce their new logo, our new color palette, a whole bunch of stuff around marketing. But in the process of announcing this new marketing strategy and this new logo and branding, etc., she trashed everything that had been done before. I mean, completely tore it apart. And I'm sitting looking at 150 marketing people in the room who had worked on what had been done before, and they were just so dispirited that their new leader was on stage telling them that the work they had done before was crap. And honestly, half of that team were gone within 6 months. Very good people. And I said to myself, I will never make that mistake. But yet, when I got to Werner, about 4 weeks after I got to Werner, I was on an all hands call where we were talking about what we were going to do, and I mistakenly kind of made the same mistake. I didn't do it deliberately, but I kind of talked about AS400 and the mainframe in a very disparaging way. And I didn't realize it. And after the meeting, I got a phone call from one of the people who had been around for 30 years and said, had at least, I was so proud of the guy. He had the courage to say to me, that was one of the most dispiriting things we'd ever done. So he had the courage to tell me I'd done it without even realizing I'd done it. And then I was able to at least jump on it and get back people in a room and say, I'm sorry, I apologize, that's not what I meant. And then I can, from that point on, I made sure that I didn't ever do that again. In fact, talked up the team. So I think you have to be very, very careful about how you walk into a legacy organization and move them forward without trashing the past, because the past is what got them where they were. And that was the part that had to stick with me. They wouldn't be around for 65 years, and they managed before me, and they'll manage without me. And I think that was a very important lesson I learned in that short period of time. So, but that's more about me than you, Rahul, and that's not what we're here for.
But again, another stat. The average age of a CIO in America is 3 years. So by that account, Daragh and I are 2-time CIOs now, right? But it's for that reason. People actually forget that they're actually handed a baton from the previous leadership. They're in charge for some period of time, and you can't just trash everything that's happened in the past.
Right.
You got to respect the past.
You got to respect the past, and I think that's an important for every leader in any organization to learn. You got to respect what's gotten that company and that organization to that point. Wait, so the average tenure of a CIO is 3 years?
Yep. You and I have exceeded expectations at this point.
I never thought you were above average before, but good for you. We did exceed expectations. All right, so let's move on to the next thing I wanted to chat about. Is data, right? So in both of our organizations, and I think in any organization today, data is king, right? It's like if you got good data, it's half the battle. So just talk about real-time data, how you guys use it, what's your philosophy around data. I think everyone is, it's sort of a boring story, but as technologists, for the most part, we're interested in data. So what's your strategy, philosophy around data? How do you manage it? How do you keep it clean? How do you make it available, etc.?
Yeah, it's fairly simple. We are Nebraska people. We're simple people from Nebraska, so we kept our data strategy simple as well. No if then else about it. Think about the platform mindset and what I reference as part of a key to the digital transformation, right, was to get a solid foundation of platforms going and move into real-time data that would actually power. Because we had the same problem that I'm telling you, vast majority of the companies have. Our data was in, you name a database and we had it. Mayor, that's why we've kept Teradata still around, right? But you name 10 other databases and we had a copy of it, right? It was all over, it was disparate, it was done in a very siloed way. And then the connecting layer was more a forward, backward bridges. So I see a lot of nod, I mean, for my CIO pals here, heads nodding, because that is the story of company after company. We were not any different. But what we said is, now we're doing a wholesale change out of platforms. The data that we generate, can we curate that into a cloud instance and govern it with the zero trust principles and govern it so that there is one version of truth for the company. And I give a lot of kudos to our team here that that took that baton and said, Rahul, we'll run with that. Okay. And we have now curated our data on Snowflake in cloud, and it's organized as data products, and we're beginning to switch everything to those data products, right? They say you reference data is the new thing, data is the new oil. You'll hear it all, those little monikers. I love that. But if data is the new oil, how you refine it into analytics is the key. Otherwise, data is nothing, right? So how we are beginning to use is really working two in a box. We do a quarterly business review with each one of my peers. I sit in it, my peer from operations and all different areas. We individually do that. We talk about what is it that how does technology move the needle forward, right? I see my colleague here, Katie Sanders. She just did one with operations yesterday. And we talk about here's what happened in 90 days, here's next 90 days. How do we connect to a 3 to 5 year North Star? Sounds simple. It's very difficult to get it implemented and actually sustained and doing quarter after quarter, right? Part of that is talking about how does data enable, in yesterday's case, would have been operations, right? I think a mistake that Daragh people are making is a bunch of science projects that get started in addressing data, right? Something like looks cute. I'm going to get like a report here or there. What we have done is we've figured out with our business partners that it's not technology for the sake of technology. It's technology for the sake of value. Value in operations is how can I move goods from point A to point B faster with fewer touches, with velocity? Can we get our terminals, which would be kind of like airports? So you imagine, like, you go through Chicago, and if you can make all your connections, your baggage shows up, everything works. Well, railroads kind of sort of work the same way. So if we can make our terminals more throughput, and we can make more connections, all the more better, right? So we are using data for those. Today, I'm proud to say our railroad is running best ever operations in its history because of this concept that we have a tech powered railroad. This is not a tech for tech company, but this is a tech powered railroad. We're using the scale data. We're getting into the nitty gritty. The second part of it that I love about a change in mindset is adopting the MVP mindset, minimal viable product, right? Always the challenge the team on, what can you do for me in 90 days, right? Well, getting to that took a couple of years, but once the team saw what it could be in 90 days, I see my colleague Sandy Conley here, who does phenomenal job with running terminal systems. They put new set of like abilities for our terminals to operate much smoother, but as an MVP. And then as they got feedback, they scaled it up. You put more concentric circles of increased functionality around that. and then they got more feedback over the next 90 days. And what they've built in a short 2 years is a work of art, is brilliant, right? Would not have been possible in a more waterfall mindset. So beginning to use that data, thread in the data in a way across those curated data products, having one version of truth is really the unlock. So think about, like, in next 5 years, where AI is headed. You just came out of Chris. You came out of a AI summit recently. What is going to happen possibly to the data? So
Yeah.
I want to hear your.
I want to point out, I was going to try and get through this entire conversation without mentioning AI, and you just screwed it up. So, but so lately I've been thinking a lot about this concept of lean technology or lean IT, and in my mind, data is a massive part of this. So you mentioned technology for technology's sake, and an awful lot of IT organizations do that. An awful lot of technology becomes shelfware, even in this day and age when shelfware is no longer really a thing. But it is. We buy stuff and then we don't really use it. But I think for me, one of the biggest areas where lean IT, or that this concept of making do with less, is data, and the amount of data we all collect versus the amount of data we actually put to use, to me, is just mind blowing. Like I suspect somewhere in when we do the math in Werner, and I'm sure you'll maybe feel the same way. I suspect we're probably making really good use of about 10% of the data we collect, and then the other 90%, some of it never gets used at all. Some of it's used occasionally. Some of it's looked in deep analytics. But the reality is that we collect way too much data, I believe, and then make no use of it, and then eventually either delete it. So we have all of these resources tied up in data management. Just, I know this is sort of coming out of left field at you, but just give me your thoughts on that. Do you agree? Where's your head at on data collection and data usage?
I totally agree that companies have so much data and then don't know what to do with it, or most of it goes unused. It's with that in mindset. With that in mind, we said, when we actually put data as data products on cloud, it will be the data that we need for that 3 to 5 year vision. Now, let me pause there for a second, because that's important. Like measuring in the majors, you could put 1,000 data products in Union Pacific out there. We picked the first 100 and said, that's what we're going to stop, because that's what's required for that North Star 3 to 5 year vision. So to me, actually being discerning, it's kind of like SAP customizations. You can do them infinitely, or you can put your foot down.
If you use SAP, you don't have any choice but to do customizations.
Well,
but that's a whole other
well,
conversation.
you know what? This is our first difference. My answer to customizations is no, no, hell no, and no. That's how it works. When we put our success factors, we may have put 10 customizations that were required for our railroad. Otherwise, it's a vanilla implementation of success factors. It's about as vanilla as it gets. With implementing Ariba for procurement, it's about as vanilla as it gets. So data is the same way. You can put 1,000 things on that. The costs escalate. I have to watch for what it does to the bill, and we've been very careful. And my leadership team will here tell you that we actually have put our foot down on what we put on cloud, and that if that's not getting used, we actually look at the stats. We look at, like, how do we get to that usage going, because it's usually tied to that 3 to 5 year journey. So I mean, that's how we're managing
it's the
it.
point of, like, again, if I look across every organization, and if you look at the resources that are running, it doesn't matter whether it's in the cloud, in your data center, in a database. I think in general, we're completely bloated in technology in terms of managing the resources we use. And that's sort of why I call it lean IT, right? How do we get to this point where we're just using enough resources to run the business? So, for example, in operations, you don't put 1,000 extra trucks on the road if you're not going to fill those trucks and deliver goods on them. It should, I believe it should be the same in technology. We should start to look at, I shouldn't spin up, 1,000 extra CPUs today if I'm not going to use all of them. I shouldn't have 50 terabytes of data if I've never even looked at 30 of those terabytes. So that's sort of the concept. I'm trying to think about, and like, execution of that's going to be extremely heavy, because when our business need that data, they're going to claim that it should be there. But my argument would be, if you need it once a year, do we really need it at all? So it's something you and I and Chris can discuss over dinner some night. You on, Chris? Yeah, he looks like it.
Chris is going to buy.
Chris is going to buy.
He hasn't bought in a while.
I don't think he has. Yeah, it's his turn. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about one of the concepts I've fully buy into is product-led IT, product-led technology, as versus project-led technology. And you mentioned both product and project, and I get it. We have to have projects. But what's your philosophy on product being a component of how we deliver technology to businesses?
Huge proponent of product mindset. But again, I said we're simple people from Nebraska, so let me explain how we implement it here at Union Pacific. What we did is a simple philosophy. We organize ourselves by domains. So my operations peer has one colleague of mine, Katie, that takes care of everything operations, which meant actually putting everything related to operations, moving things around in one place. Next up was changing this, looking at basically what we are working on, exposing with transparency what we were working on, and really creating a healthy dialogue, sometimes spirited, around what really needed to be done. And what we found in the first year, Katie, was we're working on too many things. We're like this death by 1,000 cuts mindset versus majoring in the majors, right? And we reinvented that. Say, we're going to work on a few. Then came the concept of this, how do we implement in shorter sprints? How do we get to 90-day cycles, right? And really tackle the biggest thing that the product mindset has entails, which is, how do you become a student of outcomes versus outputs? We technologists sometimes love outputs, right? Hey, I worked 16 hours. Well, was it smart 16 hours? What did you accomplish out of it, right? What value did we create for the business? Then the second part that we have really mastered here at Union Pacific, and I'm sure Daragh, you and I have talked, you've done it at Werner, is tie that effort to value. If you're not generating ROI, or you're not generating productivity, or you're not helping the business grow, then why do it? We've also have full stack teams within these domains. They're fully capable of handling all aspects of the business, whether it's the capital projects, whether it's the OE projects, whether it's the tactical stuff, whether it's like, short-term, very project versus building the product. It's all happening within that domain. They're fully stacked. So the responsibility, the accountability, the trust with the business, right? It starts with, always Dara starts with the trust. Yeah. If you have the trust, if you have the relationship, you can drive accountability to the nth order. And we've been able to get to that place with our business partners. I just was in a field with my peer, Eric Geringer, who's our head of operations, day before yesterday. And we were watching our team interact. And Eric and I were like proud papas in the back, talking about like, hey, it's difficult to say who belongs to which team. You see, that is the outcome that I wanted out of the product mindset, was to kind of be two in a box, be value driven, majoring in the majors, understanding how we move the needle forward, and for these product teams to understand, where does the company need to be in 3 to 5 years, which could be very well a merged company, a true transcontinental railroad. So we'll adjust to that philosophy and that mindset, right? But to me, having that vision within that organization, having one point of accountability and one set of metrics that you can define success as, has been a key vector for me. And, it's working very well. How about you?
Yeah, I think similarly, like trust to me is the key, and and maybe you could talk about this a little bit, like historically and mostly, I think business teams, operations teams, back office teams find it really, really hard to trust technology in the IT teams. And part of that is years. And let's be honest, there was a period, 90s, 2000s, 2000, maybe even into 2015, 16, where the IT mentality really was, before this product led IT, really was, we'll listen to you, we hear you, but we really know better, and we'll deliver what we think you need, not what you actually asked us for. And then there was also this waterfall approach, which created the scenario where you asked for something 2.5 years ago. It took us 2.5 years to deliver it. Now we have delivered it, kind of, not exactly, but kind of, and it's not really what you needed to begin with. So I think all along you walk into these organizations, you walk into businesses, and the technology is not really delivered for the business teams or the operations teams, and as a result, they don't trust us. So I think, how did you experience that walking in here? Even though there might be great people in your technology organization, they just didn't have the ability to deliver the way that the business needed. So did you walk into that, and how did you go about turning that around?
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously 24 years of working for Fortune 1, going through the changes and watching that company kind of, become relevant in the age of Amazon and all the onslaught that was, and actually not just being relevant but exceeding. I came in with a viewpoint, but then you have to assess, like, organizationally, the what, the how, the who, right? And part of the what and the how here was that assessment on how transparent is the technology organization here. In fact, it was called IT, yeah, as in most organizations. So guess what was the first thing I did? I changed the name of the department. I said, we're not IT anymore, because IT was labeled as more home of slow and no. And we said, I don't want that.
There we go. Slow and no. I like that.
I guess you're going to use this in a Werner town hall now. But simple thing, changing a name, say technology and tech at Walmart was a great enabler to the next generation of retailing. We could apply the same principles in our supply chain company. In fact, cute story, to ensure compliance. Anytime anybody said IT, we used to put $1 in a jar. I collected around $600, right? We donated it to a charity. Don't worry about it. But it used to be like, so it started settling in that this is a new era. This is a new mindset. This is a new philosophy. We put like bite-sized chunks around explaining the why. Here's why going to product is important. Here's why actually, platform mindset is important. The so what is here. Part of that was also naming each of the years. I usually give a little tagline to each of the years. So first 2-3 years was all about landing the planes. We had lots of initiatives that we were working on, and we said we're going to land those planes. We're going to land these platforms into production and really set the foundation for it. The fourth year became all about availability. We landed these planes. It became about availability, not impacting the business, etc. And this year, our tagline for the year is stepping into the moment. Because really the so what is, we've built all this. Let's step into the moment. We don't know what next 3 to 5 years are going to exactly entail. How do we get ready for the era of AI in a mindset that mimics the mindset of an entrepreneur rather than a legacy mindset, right? And to me that's really been a huge unlock for us, Daragh.
So look, we're going to head into questions, but what I want to do is I have this sort of quick fire pop quiz round I want to do with you, and I did it with Chris Still last year, and he failed miserably. I don't think he got one question right. I mean, and there is only one right answer for most of this stuff. And
I have
the right
not
answer
seen this. I'm dreading this
yeah,
one.
and the right answer is what I say it is. So, all right, let's start. Mac or PC?
Mac.
Good. Hey, that's good. All right. Phone or Android?
Phone.
iPhone?
iPhone,
All right, 2 for 2. Google or Microsoft Office? Google Workspace or Microsoft Office?
Microsoft Office.
I failed there. Build or buy? You got a choice. You got to build it or you want to buy it. What are you going to do?
I'm right there in the middle. What's right for the business?
All right. That's sort of half an. I'll give you half a point for that. It's not really right.
You
Deliver
know
with-
why it's the right thing? Because build or buy is a philosophy that's a ditch-to-ditch philosophy. Last time I checked, driving in a ditch was never a good idea. So usually the right philosophy is driving in the middle of the road. And some products are good for building and some good if it's IP building. And if it's not IP generating, then buy it for speed. So that's why I'm in the middle of the road on that one.
So that's a completely wrong answer, and I'll tell you what. Completely
You
wrong.
look like a ditch driving guy.
No, yeah, like sometimes you got to get in the ditch. But I will say, like, here's where my philosophy is: if 90% or 80% of what you need is available to buy, I would rather buy it and customize through configuration wherever possible. So that's the point I would say. Like, if I can buy it off the shelf and not have to waste a year building it, and I can use that year to maybe 3 months of that year to customize what I need, and then the other 9 months of the year to do work that the business actually needs, that's where I would be. But we can, over Dill's dinner, we can discuss that some more. Are you an AI optimist or an AI skeptic?
AI enthusiast.
Enthusiast. I'm there too. So you're doing way better than Dill. All right, couple of just biggest time waste in corporate IT. Like what do we do every day that we just need to stop doing?
Meetings.
Agree. Man. One app on your phone you can't live without?
LinkedIn.
Oh, I don't know why you would say that. Early riser?
4:50 a.m.
4:50 a.m. Okay, I'm there with you too. Best leadership advice you've ever gotten?
Trust, relationship, and accountability, and do it in that order.
Did someone give him these questions ahead of time? That's a good answer. All right, and then let's wrap up with something people don't know about you, but would be surprised to know.
That may be the toughest question.
That you can dress down.
I can dress down. I can read your palm. A little palmistry helped really in college, if you know what I mean.
All right, that's okay. I want to say expand. Let's give us more. This is heading to the right place all of a sudden.
No more expansion.
No more expansion. All right, I knew you were going to do that. All right, we'll leave it there. Q&A, questions. We can do audience and online. So what is a specific logistics gap that we're hoping the Midwest founder will solve in the next year?
I think we've such an awesome opportunity in Midwest to think about, like, we've got, like, I talked about those Fortune 500 companies going away. I checked, like, what happened in the Omaha in those last 25, 26 years. Actually been pretty stable, right? I think Omaha and the Midwest founders need to start thinking about what is the problems that we're trying to solve that positions not just Nebraska, but positions the United States of America as world leaders. So think about ag tech and what platforms could be built in ag tech. Dar and I are part of supply chain, and we need to start thinking about, like, what are the products that build the smart supply chains that enable the country for the next generation, for the next 25 to 50 years. Chris Dill is with construction industry. He's thinking through certainly the platforms that he needs to build for, like, how does the industry move forward, right? We are such a big fintech, here in Omaha. Think about fintech plus automation plus AI and where the world's headed. Our founders kind of need to start thinking about in those domains. So there's a ton of inherent knowledge that exists in Nebraska that can be scaled to absolutely the next level of thinking.
I think if I were thinking about the one logistics problem I wish somebody could solve, it's optimization. And I mean, like several forms of optimization, but specifically for us, it would be route optimization. Like we have a ton of history, a ton of knowledge, a ton of experience, really good experience in our operations department. And now we have tech doing some of this work as well. But, you know, you can imagine no matter what we do with 9,500 trucks on the road and 40,000 trailers in play, it's really hard to optimize. A driver gets sick, a truck breaks down, you know, weather, etc., etc. So optimization is a constant battle. So if anyone out there, and I think we're getting closer and closer with AI, if anyone out there solves optimization in such a way that I look at it and go, wow, that's it. Because we see them all the time. Like, you know, my guys will tell you, we talk to because companies are optimizing routes 10 times a month, and we've yet to see the one that goes, that's it. It just fixed the problem for us. So that would be the one.
Mike, here.
I went online to hear you.
Okay. Yeah. How do your organizations evaluate open source software, and is there a place for that in large enterprises, or does it lack the commercial support and too risky to be used?
The question was, do our organizations use open source? Oh, heck yeah. We are heavy open source users. We believe in it, and not only just believe in it, we also like to contribute back to the open source. So I would say I'm a heavy proponent, but that's not a philosophy that I brought. It's existed in Union Pacific, so it was a good jive in. So very open to it.
Same answer. Open source. It has a place. I mean, you just got to put the right boundaries around it, the right usage around it. But yeah, big open source fan.
Yeah, you just got to make sure that, you know, it meets the principles of writing that secure code that, you know, doesn't expose the company in a way. But we've got phenomenal engineers that look at that, have a method to this madness, and we are actually heavy users of open source.
When you look at innovation, do you usually go internal or to external partners, and how do you encourage it within your organization?
Yeah, it comes from all angles. So the question was about how do we look at innovation? Is it internal or external? The answer is both, right? What I've seen internally is going to that MVP mindset and putting a solution out there and saying we're going to scale up from based on the feedback usually has yielded massive amount of innovation that we never imagined would be in the product when we started it, right? Because you got the internal, like those geniuses at play trying to solve the problems. And any leader, any company will fail if they're just trying to do it internally. So this is the whole build versus buy, right? I see a few supplier partners here. I see my friends from Salesforce. They are innovating at scale. They've got the advantage of, there's just one example, but they have the advantage of working with thousands of customers here, right? And they are bringing innovation in their own mindsets to the table that we need to adapt and adopt, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. So the answer is yes, it's both ways. It's a mindset thing, though, when you go external, right? One thing I tell our supplier partners, do not build for us. Come build with us, right? Subtle, but important. Drives home the point that we want to be partners. As we thrive, we want them to thrive. And then with the internal people, it's been a phenomenal enabler. In fact, my colleague here, Sandy Conley, is having me work in a field implementing some system next week, and said, I want to get your thoughts on what you see because you're not very close to it. I want to get your thoughts on it. So guess what? I'll be in my work boots giving her feedback on what I think about the system that she's putting in.
Really, work boots?
Work boots.
Okay.
We're not like Werner where we just put on nice shoes.
Send
over
us
there.
a photo. Send us a photo. I'm with you. Like, I think to me, this is the build versus buy argument. Like, I would always look if we need innovation, and I love that's one of the reasons I talk to founders, entrepreneurs, startups all the time, because that's where the innovation happens. It really does. It doesn't happen. There are a few companies that have been around for 10 plus years that there is an exception here. I think Salesforce is probably one of them. And one of the reasons I love Salesforce as a platform is you can innovate on the platform just with configuration and some basic code writing. So it's definitely, to me, you just look at both sides. If it's worth doing it in-house, do it in-house. If somebody has the idea in-house, I would still look outside to see if someone else has already done it. But same thing, like just look everywhere for it. Oh, that it?
Oh, wait, DT wants to have
DT
the
has got a
last
question.
question.
Last question. It's
From
quite
an
an
end user perspective, predictive analytics, are they accepting it, the balance of tribal knowledge versus and their own decisions versus using the system to predict? What have you guys seen?
That was a huge change management in a company that's legacy, that's proud. It's very common to find people with 30, 40, heck, 50-year experience here at Union Pacific, and a lot of that inherent knowledge that comes with those decades of experience, right? But part of the data strategy is to transition from being a reactive company based on yesterday's data to more predictive. And again, it required us to kind of take the bite, proverbial, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But let's add one step to that. What matters is where's the first bite going to be? Because everybody's watching. So when we worked on majoring in the majors, where are we going to get predictive? We said, you know what? Let's go in an area that actually has the most tribal knowledge and we can make the most impact. So I was out building our transportation plans, right? Used to be reactive. And then if there's an event, a weather event that happened, somebody had to get back in the drawing board, see how they would route the trains, etc. With the data that was available, we said we can put that complexity in the software. We actually get predictive with press of a button and recalculate everything that used to take weeks sometimes, right? Once they saw the value, they can't live without it. So it's just creating that value proposition. You take their feedback, you take their experience, and you show the value, and you say, there's a better way to do it. Let's build it together. So to me, that's been a great enabler for us. That was just one example, but we have lots of examples we're building that are looking way more predictive than reactive.
All right. We are at time. We're going to turn it over to Chairman of Tech Nebraska, Chairman of the Executive Board, Chris Dill. Chris had asked he was going to be brief, and he asked for 15 minutes, but we told him he'd get 1 minute.
And he usually likes a spotlight. He likes light shining. So this is about the best we can do.
Just give me the mic and pipe down, both of you, all right? First of all, how about one more time for the prince and the antagonist up here? So here's what I think I heard today. One, I'm in my 11th year as the CIO at Kiewit, so the two of you, you're still on probation as far as I'm concerned. I guess I'm 3X. We really do. We really do. We set the bar low as a company. What else did I hear? Rahul identifies as a Nebraskan after 5 years. You're the most Kashmiri Nebraskan that I know, but a Nebraskan nonetheless. I'm pleased to hear this. You've adopted our state. That way.
Life. How can you
right?
not?
It is. It's the good life. I think, in all seriousness, these are two of the best doing it in the region right now, without question. And I would say we are blessed with a loaded set of great technology leaders in the state and in the area right now, many of which are members in Tech Nebraska. And I think if you're wondering or looking for a reason to believe Tech Nebraska is the preeminent voice on tech in the state, it's powered by that. It's powered by the fact that we've got just a whole host of really, really good forward-looking technology leaders in key roles in key companies right now. And it's exciting times. And I think hopefully the last hour highlighted that with these guys. So with that, Tech Nebraska, go please, as Emily said, go become a free member as an individual. Better yet, talk your organization into becoming a corporate member. Students, under 25, are you a student still, or are you just early career? Right. Well, call your friends who are still in school and tell them to become student members of Tech Nebraska. We want and need to grow the community as broad as we possibly can. We'll do our best work with as many of Nebraska's technologists involved as possible. So finally, Tech Nebraska hits the road for the first time This year, in our 3+ years of existence, we've primarily been getting our feet under us in the Omaha, Lincoln, kind of eastern Nebraska area, if you will. This summer, we go on the road and we have our first 2 micro summits. So we have a micro summit in Kearney in June and Norfolk in July. So go out and check the website, check our socials for specific dates and details around those. But that's very exciting. Be on the lookout for our annual big summit in October here in Omaha. And otherwise, keep up with Tech Nebraska and contribute and become a member, because we got great things going. How we're influencing policy and the things that create an environment in the state for all companies to be technology companies and all technologists to succeed, I think is truly making a difference. So with that, Emily, last thoughts? All right, we're going to wrap it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you being here.